She said, I was pregnant in my fallopian tubes.
Pastor T.D. Jakes has spent decades building one of the most powerful names in modern ministry. He is a preacher, author, filmmaker, husband, father, and the face behind the Potter's House. To millions, he has been a voice of hope in painful times. But lately, that image has been surrounded by questions, rumors, legal drama, health scares, and videos people keep replaying online. The man who once seemed untouchable is now being viewed through a very different lens. With talk of CCTV footage pulling even more attention, many are going back through his life, his marriage to Serita, his career, and the scandals tied to his name. What is real? What is twisted? And what are people only noticing now? Join us as we dig deeper. The boy they thought would never preach. Before the huge crowds, television cameras, best-selling books, and massive Dallas ministry, his story began far away from fame. Thomas Dexter Jakes was born on June 9, 1957, in South Charleston, West Virginia. He grew up in the Vandalia neighborhood of Charleston, in a home led by his father, Ernest Sr., a businessman and entrepreneur, and his mother, Odith, an educator. He was the youngest of 3 children, and people around him knew him as the Bible Boy. That name said a lot. Even as a child, people could tell faith was already a big part of him. But not everyone believed he could become what he dreamed of becoming. Because of his slight lisp, some people told him he would never preach. That kind of comment could have crushed a young boy. Instead, it stayed with him in a different way. It became one of the first doubts he had to fight before the world ever knew his name. And that is why his early life matters so much. The man people later saw on big stages did not begin with power. He began with pressure, doubt, and a voice that others thought would hold him back. The moment his childhood ended. When Jakes was 10 years old, his father developed kidney failure. That changed the mood inside the family home. Jakes and his mother helped care for him, and by January 1973, when Jakes was only 16, his father died. The loss shattered him. It was not just grief, it was pressure. Overnight, he felt pushed into manhood. There was no long pause to process the pain because the family still had needs. Poverty did not stop because sadness had entered the house. He had to think about survival, work, and what would happen next. Still, the calling he had felt since childhood stayed alive. The same voice people had once mocked became the voice he chose to use. On May 29, 1976, he preached his first sermon. Then, in 1979, at age 22, he was officially ordained. What others treated as a weakness slowly became part of his strength. Around that same season, Jakes was still a young man trying to understand faith, responsibility, and survival all at once. He was not walking into ministry with an easy road ahead. He was walking into it with loss behind him and pressure all around him. But those hard years gave his preaching a weight people could feel. He was not just speaking about struggle, he had lived it before most people were even paying attention. And once that pain became part of his voice, Jakes stepped into the kind of small, difficult beginning that would test whether his calling could survive real life. The 10-member church that built a giant. Around 1980, while still in West Virginia, Jakes started what became Temple of Faith Church, later known as Greater Emmanuel Temple of Faith. It began in a worn-out storefront in Montgomery, West Virginia, with only 10 members. There was no big money, no steady support, and no backup plan. He was trying to pastor a tiny church while also building a family and staying alive financially. In May 1982, he married Serita Ann Jakes. They had met when he came as a guest preacher to her home church in Beckley, West Virginia, and their relationship had been long distance, with about 70 miles between them. Serita had studied drama in college, and over time she became known as the First Lady of the Potter's House. But their early marriage was not wrapped in comfort. There were rent scares, skipped meals, and the pressure of raising children while the ministry was not yet paying the bills. To provide, Jakes worked outside the church. He dug ditches and laid PVC pipe for gas lines, often with his brother, earning about $100 a job. He also worked around Union Carbide and other rough job sites. When the plant shut down in 1982, even that income disappeared. He did odd jobs, collected and sold pop bottles for pennies, and kept preaching. Serita stayed with him through that season while they raised their children and tried to hold the family together. But even with Serita beside him and his calling still alive, the pressure inside that tiny church was about to get even harder. When faith was all he had left. Those early church years were not polished at all. Bills went unpaid. Sometimes there was no electricity, no heat, and no easy way to keep people warm. During the freezing early 1980s, people came to service wearing coats, while Jakes preached by candlelight and flashlight. The room was dark, the air was cold, but the feeling inside those services was strong. Jakes later described that season as the valley before the mountain. It shaped his preaching because he was not speaking from theory. He was speaking from pain, hunger, fear, survival, and faith. At the same time, he kept studying. He worked toward degrees through correspondence while working, preaching, and raising children. He earned a bachelor's degree in biblical studies in 1985, a master's degree in 1990, and a Doctor of Ministry degree in 1995 from Friends International Christian University. In 1987, he was ordained into the bishopric. By 1988, he had joined Higher Ground Always Abounding Assemblies, a oneness Pentecostal ministerial fellowship founded by Bishop Sherman Watkins. The small preacher from West Virginia was still not famous, but the base was being built. That is the part people often miss when they only see the later fame. Before the expensive buildings and packed conferences, there were cold services, unpaid bills, and a pastor trying to keep faith alive with almost nothing in his hands. The sermon that changed everything. In 1990, Jakes moved back to South Charleston, West Virginia, and his congregation grew to around 300 members. In 1993, he moved again, this time to Cross Lanes, West Virginia. That same period gave him the message that changed his life. He preached "Woman, Thou Art Loosed," a sermon focused on women's pain, trauma, abuse, and spiritual bondage. Many churches had not spoken about those wounds so openly. The message hit people hard. Women cried, shouted, and felt like someone had finally named their pain. Soon, recordings of the sermon spread on cassette tapes from church to church, home to home, and prayer group to prayer group. By the late 1990s, it had reached tens of thousands of people and became a best-selling book. In its early years, the book sold more than 500,000 copies. Jakes also began moving into television. In 1993, he launched a weekly broadcast on the Trinity Broadcasting Network. In 1994, he began weekly broadcasts on Black Entertainment Television and started the first Manpower Conference, created to motivate men in their family and community roles. By 1995, he founded TDJ Enterprises, the business structure behind his growing media work. It published his books, produced films, and helped carry his message through CDs, DVDs, radio, television, plays, music projects, and conferences. From 1995 to 1996, he also hosted Get Ready, a weekly radio and television program with national distribution. The local pastor was no longer staying local. The risky move that made him national. In May 1996, Jakes left West Virginia and moved to Dallas, Texas, with Serita, their 5 children, and around 50 loyal church families. More than 200 people moved with him. He bought the former W.V. Grant Church property, renamed it the Potter's House, and stepped into a 34-acre hilltop campus in Oak Cliff, near Dallas Baptist University. The first service on May 19, 1996, drew more than 2,000 people, even though Jakes expected only 200 or 300. Hundreds stood outside in the Texas heat, trying to listen through makeshift outdoor speakers. By late 1997, around 7,000 people attended weekly. By May 1998, that number had reportedly doubled to about 14,000, forcing several Sunday services. In August 2000, a 191,000-square-foot sanctuary opened, seating around 7,600 people. The Potter's Touch television program also began airing on networks like TBN and BET by 1998, putting Jakes in front of millions of viewers. His women's conferences filled major arenas, including crowds in places like the Georgia Dome. In September 2001, Time magazine put him on the cover and asked whether he might be the next Billy Graham. The child once mocked as the Bible Boy had become one of the most visible preachers in America. But once a man becomes that visible, every choice, every connection, and every public moment starts to carry more weight. The empire that put him under a microscope. As the Potter's House grew, it became more than a Sunday church. It ran programs for housing, prison outreach, AIDS testing and support, education for at-risk children, GED help, job placement, counseling, and other community services. Jakes also built a wider public profile. He appeared in respected lists and events, including PBS Religion and Ethics Newsweekly's Top 10 Religious Leaders, the Black Americans of Achievement series, the Encyclopedia of African American Christian Heritage, and Who's Who Among African Americans. In 2000, he spoke at gatherings for the National Council of Black Mayors, the National Black Police Association, and the Congressional Black Caucus. In 2001, Time and CNN called him America's Best Preacher. In 2004, he launched MegaFest, and by 2005, around 100,000 people attended in Atlanta over 4 days. That same year, he accompanied President George W. Bush to areas devastated by Hurricane Katrina. On January 20, 2009, he led the early morning prayer service for President Barack Obama at St. John's Church in Washington, D.C. But 2009 also brought a painful family headline. His son, Jermaine Jakes, faced an indecent exposure charge linked to an incident at Keast Park in Dallas. Jakes told his congregation he had the week from hell and called the arrest unfortunate, while saying he would provide help, support, and restorative grace. He also said, "A parent's love is not reduced when children fail to live up to their highest ideals." But even after that painful moment, his public reach kept growing, and the name T.D. Jakes only became bigger. When fame made every move matter. Later, his public life kept expanding through MegaFest, books, films, and television attempts. MegaFest drew huge crowds, including 75,000 people from more than 30 countries in Dallas in 2013, and more than 85,000 by 2015. He also pushed into daytime television, but one planned syndicated talk show never premiered, and another, TD. Jakes' talk show was later canceled in 2017 because of poor ratings and low clearances. Along the way, he spoke about beliefs that drew attention, including the Trinity, sexual abstinence, and views on homosexuality and LGBT rights. He said his views were evolving, but also said his words were misinterpreted, and that he did not support same-sex marriage while respecting the rights of those who disagreed. By 2011, his reach was described in even wider terms. The Potter's House had around 30,000 members, and the Potter's Touch served people across America, Africa, Australia, Europe, and the Caribbean. His work was tied to the Metroplex Economic Development Corporation, Clay Academy, MegaCare, the Texas Offenders Reentry Initiative, and the Potter's House Center for Counseling and Behavioral Health. He had written more than 30 books, with 15 called bestsellers. Before You Do and Reposition Yourself both reached number 3 on the New York Times bestsellers list. His film work included Not Easily Broken and Jumping the Broom, and he received honors including a Quill Award, a Grammy Award, NEACP Image Awards, and the President's Award. In 2017, he also spoke to Publishers Weekly about SOAR, a book focused on building vision from the ground up. He said, "The only thing consistent about life is that it will change," and explained that people had to rethink how to evolve. That public message of reinvention sat beside a private image built with Serita, their 5 children, Sarah, Cora, Jermaine, Thomas Jr., and Jamar, and a life people still wanted to understand in ways that now felt deeply public. By the time people started replaying clips, watching public moments, and treating every piece of footage like a clue, T.D. Jakes was no longer just being seen as a preacher. He was being watched as a powerful public figure with a very complicated story. And while the public was still trying to understand the man behind the ministry, Jakes was already preparing for one of the biggest handoffs of his life. Was T.D. Jakes already preparing to step back? By 2022, Woman, Thou Art Loosed had become one of the most important parts of T.D. Jakes' ministry story. For more than 25 years, the conference had gathered women looking for hope, healing, peace, and freedom from pain they had carried for too long. But on September 22nd, at the Georgia World Congress Center in Atlanta, Jakes made it clear that this chapter was changing. During the grand finale conference, he surprised his daughter Sarah Jakes Roberts by calling her to the stage. This was not just a sweet family moment, it was a public passing of responsibility. In front of around 22,000 women, he anointed her as the voice of a new generation of ministry. The old conference was officially moving into Woman Evolve, Sarah's own ministry and women's movement. Jakes told her, "Sarah Jakes Roberts, when you walk onto this stage, you are walking into your destiny." Then he added that after 30 years of Woman, Thou Art Loosed, and 45 years of preaching, the time had come for him to decrease, and for her to increase. He made it clear this was not an inheritance and not a favor, but a divine assignment. He also told Sarah that it was not weak for a man to empower a woman, and warned her not to drop the mic as she picked up his. Then he anointed her with oil and said, "With every drop of oil that falls upon your head, may the strength and power of the Almighty God rest upon your life." Jakes treated the moment not as an ending, but as the start of a new chapter. He commissioned the women in the room to go forward and evolve into their destiny. At the same time, he was still leading the Potter's House, chairing the T.D. Jakes Foundation, working through T.D. Jakes Real Estate Ventures, and staying active in faith and business projects. But this public handoff quietly raised a bigger question. Was he preparing people for a future where he would not carry everything alone, even before the world saw how heavy that load had become? The lawsuit that dragged T.D. Jakes into the fire. By late 2024, the mood around T.D. Jakes changed sharply. His name was pulled into a lawsuit connected to Sean Diddy Combs. The suit was filed by music producer Rodney Lil Rod Jones, who had worked with Combs's Bad Boy Records. The lawsuit accused Combs and several associates of being part of a sex trafficking venture. It also claimed that Jones had been sexually harassed, drugged, and threatened over more than a year. Jones sought $30 million and a jury trial. Jakes was not named as a defendant in the civil case, but the lawsuit still mentioned him. It claimed Jones had irrefutable evidence of Combs talking about using his relationship with Bishop T.D. Jakes to soften the public damage after Cassie Ventura's lawsuit. That one detail was enough to make people online pause and look at Jakes differently. The wider Combs case also made the public mood more tense. After Cassie Ventura's lawsuit in November 2023, more accusations were made against Combs, including sex trafficking claims. He was arrested in September and was awaiting trial while in custody. His side denied Ventura's allegations and said the settlement was not an admission of wrongdoing. Combs also denied later civil claims and pleaded not guilty in the criminal case. The story grew because, back in 2021, Jakes had debuted a sermon series on Combs's cable network, Revolt Media. Then, after Ventura's case, Combs stepped down as chairman of Revolt, later sold his stake, and federal officers, including Homeland Security investigative officials, raided 2 of his homes. Jakes had also faced unverified social media claims in December 2023, accusing him of taking part in parties hosted by Combs. At a Christmas Eve service, Jakes answered the rumors directly. He said, "The worst that could happen, if everything was true, all I got to do is repent sincerely, from my heart." Then he added, "But I ain't got to repent about this." That line became important because it showed how strongly he denied the claims. But by then, the damage was no longer limited to one lawsuit or one rumor. Online, his name had become part of a much larger machine, where every claim, image, and headline could be turned into content. When lies started looking like proof. As the Combs story grew, T.D. Jakes became part of a much bigger online machine. In December 2024, his lawyer, Dustin Push, took legal steps against what he described as artificial intelligence-generated misinformation on YouTube. He filed a motion in the Northern District of California asking to subpoena Google, YouTube's parent company, for information about 4 YouTube account holders. According to the account's own About sections, they were said to be located in Pakistan, South Africa, the Philippines, and Kenya. The motion said these channels had made false claims about Jakes, and that parts of their videos may have been made with AI tools, including fake thumbnails and voiceovers. This mattered because hundreds of videos about Jakes had gained millions of views in 1 year. Many of them grew from speculation around the Combs allegations. Some falsely claimed Jakes had been arrested, had come out as gay, or had stepped down from the Potter's house. Others used fake images showing him in prison clothes, in handcuffs, or in sexual scenes with male celebrities. The motion said these creators were using the sordid and sensational allegations around Combs to attack, humiliate, degrade, and defame Bishop Jakes. It also said they were using his fame as clickbait for money. Jakes' lawyer said the legal action followed about a year of trying to work with YouTube's legal team and report videos that broke rules on misleading thumbnails, spam, misinformation, and sexual images. Some videos were removed, but many stayed up. NBC News had also found a wider pattern around black celebrities. Videos did not only target Jakes and Combs, They also dragged in names like Steve Harvey and Denzel Washington. Some used fake images and audio to make lies feel real. That made the issue bigger than one pastor, because the same online formula could be used against anyone famous enough to attract clicks. This is where the footage angle starts to matter. People were not always watching real proof. Many were watching edited images, fake-looking clips, and videos made to look more shocking than truthful. But then, while the internet was busy turning rumors into entertainment, a very real video from inside the Potter's house showed something no one could easily dismiss. The sermon that nearly became his last. Then came one of the most frightening public moments of Jakes' life. In November 2024, he was preaching at the Potter's house in Dallas when he appeared to suffer a medical emergency during the service. He had just delivered a powerful hour-long message. Moments before the scare, he reportedly said, "O Lord, my strength, my Redeemer, let them go in peace." Then he dropped his microphone and fell silent. The 67-year-old pastor began shivering uncontrollably in his seat as people rushed to help him. Voices could be heard telling others to back up and give him some space, while a voice behind the camera told the church and online viewers to begin to pray. The live video was cut off, and for many people watching, the moment felt unreal. Soon after, the Potter's house released a statement saying Bishop Jakes had experienced a slight health incident and had received immediate medical attention. The church said he was stable and under the care of medical professionals. But in March 2025, Jakes revealed on the Today Show that the incident had been far more serious. He said he did not understand what had happened until he reached the hospital in an ambulance. A doctor leaned over and told him, "You've had a massive heart attack." Jakes said the doctor warned that 5 minutes later, he would have been dead on arrival. Suddenly, the clips people had replayed online were not just dramatic church footage. They were a record of a man nearly dying in front of his congregation. 5 minutes from death. Jakes later explained that he did not have the normal signs people expect with a heart attack. He said he just kind of drifted off to sleep and did not know what it was. Doctors found that the right side of his heart had stopped giving blood because of a clot. He said he had been preaching while half of my heart was closed. When he sat down, the adrenaline dropped, and the danger showed itself. He had emergency surgery to remove the clot, and he said the surgeons operated while he was awake. Looking back at the footage was hard for him. He said they had to claw the microphone out of his hand, but in his mind, he was not really in that chair. He described being in a quiet, peaceful, cloud-like space and said, "I was on my way out." A week after the incident, he appeared virtually before the congregation and told them, "Many of you don't realize that you're looking at a miracle." He said he had faced a life-threatening calamity, been rushed to ICU, and had emergency surgery. The scare changed the way people looked at his future. In 2025, Jakes announced that his daughter, Sarah Jakes Roberts, and son-in-law, Touré Roberts, would become co-senior pastors of the Potter's house. He said the plans had been in the works for years, and that the couple had already been running things behind the scenes since early November. But after the heart attack, the decision carried even more weight. He told the church, "I cannot afford, especially after November, to risk something happening to me, and that you be sheep without a shepherd." And after everything the church had just watched him survive, those words did not sound like a simple leadership update. They sounded like a man making sure the house he built would not be left without direction. Can the Potter's house survive without his voice? The leadership shift became official during a nearly 4-hour service at the Potter's house, held in the packed 8,000-plus seat sanctuary. Sarah Jakes Roberts and Toure Roberts were installed as co-senior pastors, while members, guests, ministers, elders, and deacons watched. The couple wore black suits and white clerical collars. Gospel musician Judith Christie McAllister led worship, and speaker Cindy Trim gave a tribute called The Last Sermon, Leadership Redefined. Jakes said much had changed since he founded the church almost 30 years earlier. He pointed to painful events like September 11th, Hurricane Katrina, and the COVID-19 pandemic, and said the Potter's House had helped people in spiritual and practical ways. "I don't know what the future holds," he said, "but the same God that brought us through 29 years will take us and our children through the next 29 years. He also said he had seen too many men build something and stay so long that they killed what they built. Sarah, now 36 at the time of that service, spoke through tears about wondering if she had what it took. Sarah's rise also carried her own story. She had built a following among women, especially Black Christian women, who connected with her honesty. She had spoken about becoming pregnant at 13, later dropping out of college, waiting tables at a strip club, and filing for divorce from her first marriage in 2012 because of infidelity. That past made her leadership feel personal, not polished. Sarah also said, "Think we can all agree this isn't how we saw my life playing out." That line made the moment even more emotional. She was not pretending her road had been perfect. She was standing there with scars, doubts, and a new responsibility in front of the same church her father had built. She said God showed her that her parents had not known if they had what it took either. Toure said they would build on the foundation with humility, prayer, integrity, holiness, and sacrifice. Jakes remained chairman of the church board, but the center of leadership had moved. That is what made the handoff feel heavier. It was not only about age, health, or family. It was about whether a ministry built around one strong voice could survive with new voices leading it forward. In June 2025, he also addressed the Diddy rumors again at the Good Soil Forum in Dallas. He confirmed he had briefly visited Combs's home, but said it was only for about 30 minutes during the day, with staff present, to wish him happy birthday. He said, "I am almost 70 years old. What do I look like? I am a grandfather." Then, in April 2026, Sarah faced her own frightening moment after a trampoline accident. She said she was almost paralyzed after landing on her neck while playing with her daughter Ella. She heard several pops, went through 2 hospitals and many scans, and learned she had fractured her neck, herniated discs, and endangered parts of her spine. Wearing a neck brace from a hospital bed, she wrote, "Last night was scary. I was almost paralyzed, but God didn't see fit to let that be my story." Do you think T.D. Jakes stepping back was mainly about health, timing, or protecting the future of the Potter's House? After everything tied to his name online, do you think people are being fair to T.D. Jakes, or has the internet already judged him too quickly? Share your thoughts in the comments below. And don't forget to hit like, subscribe, and stay tuned for more incredible stories from Hollywood's fascinating history. See you next time.